Welcome to my voiceover world.
Hey,
Well, hello there.
how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me today. Thanks for your flexibility with the scheduling of all this.
It's what I often do, just like many others that I have done.
Of course, you are the master of flexibility.
That's how I was taught these days, but thanks for willing to do this, Rick.
I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me all right?
I can,
Beautiful. And I hear you.
of course. You know, I've been wanting to say this to you, but I've been getting to know so much about you because of the show Bleach as Shusuke Amagai. And since that character, I've been getting to know about you and your characters right there. From
Wow.
my childhood character Spike from Tom and Jerry through many anime adaptations yet to come. To be
Wow.
honest, I never knew about anime back then, but by the time I discovered One Punch Man, it opened my eyes to anime.
Very cool.
It turns I discovered you and everyone, and it led to my desire of getting into anime as a voice actor, which I am right now. It's just the only thing I have to do is just find a lot of auditions and get myself into it so that I can have my chance to be in real projects yet to come.
Awesome, Sebastian. Well, you've got a great voice, a great attitude, and you're, studying it by digesting all of those, characters and shows is fantastic training. What kind of character would you love to play?
Well, it's quite simple. It's a main character or someone who is actually has the same aspect of my personality for who I am on the inside.
Well said. Very good. One of the fun things for me as an actor, particularly in voiceover, where we're in an invisible universe and can hide in that, cloak of invisibility, is playing characters that are far beyond what I am. I play me all day long, so one of the things that I gravitate toward are roles that are very unlike me. It's more of a challenge. Sometimes it's very rewarding to play a character that is either physically different or not even fully human, maybe has an accent from a different land, maybe is a different age. So for me to stretch in the world of voiceover is the fun challenge. When you're a television or film actor or anything on camera or even on stage, you kind of are what you look like for the most part. I mean, they can do some things with makeup and hair and costumes, but for me, the very luxury of voiceovers has been the game of exploring things that are different than myself, both the way I am in my head and the way I create sound naturally in space. That's fun for me.
It's so funny that I was gonna ask you about a question about what's it like being in many animated projects and how to feel different characters to life, but you ended up answering it for me. And boy, that's just one of the huge things I did not see coming. But I'm glad you say that.
Beautiful. Well, I'm here. I'm here to help, sir.
Of course you are. So, there are other questions I'd like to ask, but what really inspired you to pursue voice acting, and what is the best decision so far that has excelled into your voice acting career?
Wow, very interesting. Without going into too much history and detail, when I was a young actor, I lived in New York City, and I was a stage actor. I was just doing theater, play after play after play. And that's how I was trained. I went to acting school, and I got an acting degree in college, and I went right to New York to do theater. And where I loved it, and I love playing in front of a live audience, and the energy in a live room is unbelievable and unmatchable. I realized sort of what we were talking about before, Sebastian, that I wanted to play roles that went further and further beyond who I was and what I looked like and what my age was and what my physical self was like. So I gravitated more into voiceovers, exploring, started with commercials, but then video games and animation. And way back in the day, somebody could probably pull up an archive. There was a company called Columbia Records. And this was a company when the old days used to buy either albums or CDs or tapes. you would join the club, and this club you would get to buy like 15 CDs for a penny, but then you had to pay their regular price for, like, you had to buy 12 more throughout the year. But it was a very popular club back in those days, and I was the face of that company. I did all their TV commercials, and I was the guy on camera just jumping around to rock music, and it was a very fun gig. They also asked me to do the radio commercials. I didn't know which end of a microphone to talk into, quite frankly. I was just, an on-camera guy. So they brought me to a recording studio, and they had me do all these radio commercials, and I was pretty good at it, hadn't studied much, but I knew how to keep within my 30 seconds and blah, blah, blah. Well, after several hours of doing all these commercials, the actor who was going to do the tagline, the little one line at the end of the commercial, was a legendary voiceover, a guy named Don Pardo. Now, people might not know his name, but they know his voice. He was the voice of Saturday Night Live for 40 years. It's Saturday night with so-and-so and special. He was that voice. Very famous voice guy. So here I am, young actor, doing all these, commercials in a studio, and in walks Don Pardo, and it was dead of winter in New York City. He had a big, heavy coat on with a big red scarf, and he just walked up to the booth. He unbuttoned his jacket, loosened up his scarf, and just said, "Columbia Records," or his little one-line tag, and then he put on his scarf, and he walked out of the room. And I was like, who was that masked man? I mean, what a great gig he was going to go off to. I was in there doing the full body of the commercial, and he had just that one-line tag, and that's the first time I thought, what a cool business. Not just for creating characters and doing cartoons, anime, video games, but it could be a lucrative business if you're booking commercials or you're the voice of a company. So that was my first taste of that kind of voiceover celebrity. It made me want to go further into VO, and then I started, exploring more character work and exploring my range. But that's my earliest little nugget of, wow, that's a pretty incredible gig. So that was a fun one.
Interesting. So
Don Pardo.
So that's how you got into voice acting, because of that guy, Don Pardo.
Don Pardo, he was just such an inspiration that he was so adept. His instrument was so tight that he did like 2 takes. Columbia Records, call today, 1-800, whatever it was. He did 2 takes and off he went, and I thought the mastery he has over his instrument was so complete. He could just come in, he knew what it sounded like in his head, he could make his mouth do that sound, and I decided, well, I wanted to have that mastery over my instrument. So I started to explore more and more voiceovers, the range that I could do with my voice, exploring accents, age, as we said, body type, creatures, whatever I could do. But that was very much, I remember that day very well, just kind of, I want to go more into voiceovers. So I moved to LA, and I started plugging away at voiceovers more and more.
Interesting. That's the most interesting I'm beginning to hear from you. You know something? What you said about Don Pardo inspired you to do this? It reminded me of a certain individual I interviewed with 2 years ago, who actually is inspired by someone named Mel Blanc to do voiceover. And you know who I'm talking about.
Well, a lot of us were inspired by Mel, who was the man of 1,000 voices.
Yeah, I'm talking about Kyle Hebert, someone who is on the spectrum, like me, who's done a lot of work since 2000. And boy, he is inspired by Mel Blanc to do so. He told me himself that his true goal is to become a main character of a show, and he's been working so hard to get there. So,
very talented guy. I've been fortunate enough to work with Kyle, and he's a talented guy, and he's in the trenches like all of us. He's working at it. We're all cranking away, trying to get that show. But that's great. Mel was the man of 1,000 voices, and was the child that, was the voice in my childhood. All the cartoons I grew up on, he was, just in a lot of those.
That's the most interesting thing to hear from you. Well, now, without further ado, about the questions of the characters, but do you remember the very first character that you voiced as? And what was the experience like having your first ever audition in this project?
Okay. Well, it surprises people that I came to animation fairly late. I had been a stage actor for many years in New York. I moved to LA to pursue this, and I was doing a lot of television work. I was doing a lot of on-camera sitcoms and TV shows, and voiceovers was still my side hustle, so to speak. And then as the years went on and I was pursuing voiceover more and more, I got an audition for a cartoon called The Mr. Men Show. People can look this up. You can see clips on YouTube. And it was based on a series of books called the Mr. Men books, and it was like Little Miss Sunshine and Mr. Happy, and they were just like these colored blobs of people with little arms and legs. But they were like Mr. Grumpy, Mr. Happy, Mr. Nosy, Mr. Nervous. Well, when they sent me the audition, they sent me the pile of all the characters, and you could pick and choose which one you wanted to do. Well, I don't know. I didn't know any better. I auditioned for every male character. I think there were about 17 of them. And I spent like 2 days locked in my room just doing all these voices. I don't know if that was overwhelming to them, but they cast me as two of the roles. I was Mr. Nervous and Mr. Nosy. And I think Mr. Nervous goes down as one of the favorite characters I've ever done. And this is going back many years now. We did a lot of episodes, about over 100 episodes, and Mr. Nervous was just afraid of everything, and they let me do like ad-libs and interjections and just kind of sputtering nervous noises in between all my lines. And I'll give you the key to the character. Although he had sort of a dweeby, nervous voice, there was a certain sound I wanted to get. And I found it by pulling one of my cheeks out. And Mr. Nervous sounded like this. A little bit like Droopy Dog. I stole it from Droopy Dog. You can look him up too. But I found I could do a nerdy voice, was very great, but when I pulled my cheek out, it sounded more pitiful. And he was, no. He was afraid of everything. And at the end of the sessions, boy, did my cheek hurt. That was Mr. Nervous. It's really funny, I did that years ago, and Sebastian, just yesterday, somebody wrote to me saying, one of my favorite characters you've ever done was Mr. Nervous, and I just went back into my head and thought of how much fun those sessions were, doing Mr. Nervous.
I see. So that was your first ever audition, Mr. Nervous. Oh,
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, that show has been part of my childhood. And I never knew about you until the day I discovered you through anime and everything. But you know something? You being part of that show was just very awesome. And that you telling me your first audition, I'm glad you say that. It's just in case if I ever do a voice showcase video, which I have done a lot of them for over 4 years on my YouTube channel, Seba's Voiceover World.
Wow.
Everything will turn out quite awesome just by voice range, age, everything. Through Brad Venable, Billy Komet, everybody. For over 4 years. So that's why I'm telling you. That's why I needed the answers. So I can use it for my videos, by all means.
Absolutely. I'm glad it's there for you. Now it's locked for all history. You know, it's there forever. But it was a fun one. And every voice actor should have that one opportunity to be on a show they love so much. The writing was fantastic. It was very funny. The characters were rich. And I went to the studio every time so joyously. And one other thing about that show I should mention, Sebastian, is very often when you do animation or anime or video games, you're brought into the studio by yourself and you just do your lines and then you leave, and then later they'll stitch all the dialogue together. Well, the Mr. Men show was fairly rare in that we recorded together. They would bring the cast in and have a whole circle of, like a half circle of microphones, and we get to organically act and react off of each other in true dialogue fashion. We call that radio play style. And it was just so much fun to be in a big studio with all the other actors playing organically with them and letting the comedy and the story just kind of unfold much more naturally than just doing your line, your next line, sort of in a vacuum, and then they kind of will, edit it and lace it together. That was those sessions were so much fun.
Interesting. That's what I like to hear from you, Rick. Now, without further ado, other characters are this. How does it feel about stepping into the role of Spike in Tom and Jerry? What do you love most about voicing him?
This may surprise people. Spike from Tom and Jerry is the big bulldog with the big spiky collar, and everybody knows him as the big angry guy. And he's always yelling and doing stuff and getting in people's face and hitting and chasing. The episodes that filled me the most were when he had episodes with his son, Tyke, a little baby bulldog. Because what I loved about the character of Spike and the way I thought of him and crafted him and developed him was this big tough guy but with a heart of gold. He was a big pussycat of a dog. And I loved when he would talk to his boy. Now, Tyke wasn't in many episodes, but I just loved that his big, tough, angry bulldog had this little soft side. And he'd go, "Oh, Tykey boy, how you doing, Tykey boy?" And I remember in one of the very first episodes, I ad-libbed Tykey boy. They just called him Tyke or boy, but I called him Tykey boy. And they said, "We love that. You can use that as your nickname for the son." And so I would inject that whenever I could. "Okay, Tykey boy." And I just loved playing the opposites of big and tough with sweet and dad-like. At the time that show, when I first got cast in that show, I was bringing up a very young daughter. I had a baby girl, and I'm a girl daddy. I just love being a dad, and I love playing with my kid. And she loved when I did that voice, so I would use her name, Katie. "Okay, Katie girl, we're gonna eat these vegetables, whether it's the last thing we do." And she would just laugh, and I would call her Katie girl, and it was like my equivalent of Tykey boy. So there's a special place in my heart for that legacy character, because I love the softness of Spike. That's a weird thing to say. For a big angry bulldog, he's got a soft side.
Well, I'm glad you say that, Rick. All I know is that Tom and Jerry has been part of my childhood since I was 4 years old, and that I watched a lot of it, and through 2014, you being the voice of Spike was actually the biggest things that will ever happen to me. But when discovering you, it just helped me understand about you are just super awesome, being that gold with a very soft heart, with a heart of gold, who's just willing to just be there for their children, his children and stuff.
Yes, you're very kind. What about the Tom and Jerry show? I'm always curious with different kinds of fans like yourself and people who like animation, video games. What draws you to a show like Tom and Jerry? I mean, they do a lot of episodes. What does a show like that bring to you?
To answer your question, that show really just piques my curiosity in a way when it comes to just knowing the story about how a relationship between a cat and a mouse just ends up in a way. Sometimes they are enemies, but sometimes whenever they deal with a lot of problems in common, that's why they just end up partnering up to just resolve these issues. And teaming up with Spike more often is just something to help make sure they understand themselves in a way.
Wow. That is very well said. I've never heard that put so beautifully. That's right. Sometimes they're at odds with each other, but sometimes they have to work together to problem solve. And it's not just a bunch of chasing and frying pans on head. There are lessons to be learned. You said that beautifully.
Yes, and it's something that I have learned through experience itself. And when I got older, it just helps me understand clearly about everything. So that's something I want to pass down to you by all means.
Thank you, Master.
Always. Now, without further ado, in the game Bugsnax, what stood out about you voicing Chromato Face? Do you relate to him by all means?
It's another one of those characters. I do a lot of those kind of characters that have, I guess you could say, an edge. And he also was kind of New Yorky, not entirely unlike Spike. If you were to play them side by side, you'd see similarity. I definitely stole from myself. But again, there's similarities in personality. Chromdo Face was very edgy and kind of tough, but he also had a soft spot and a sweetness to him. And I think I gravitate to those kind of characters. You know, in life, sometimes we have a hard outer shell to protect our soft, protective inner core. And I think you've tapped into that with Cromdo Face as well. Because he was one of these kind of guys, and he was kind of underbite with anger. But he also had a soft side and romantic intentions. And that was a fun game, too. And I should remark, that was another rare event where they brought about 10 or 11 or 12 of us into the studio all at once. And we recorded in this huge circle of some illustrious characters and actors, voiceover talent that I was just so fortunate to be in the room with at the same time. And what was also noteworthy, Sebastian, that was the last recording I did. It was March of 2020. It was like the week that COVID hit and the news broke out and everybody had to stay home and quarantine and people built their booths at home like I did right behind me. That was one of the last sessions I did with people in the studio for a couple of years when COVID went a little berserk.
Yeah, that is something I'm beginning to notice. And I haven't forgotten about that day. But yeah, you being part of Boggs Knox was very awesome right there. And like you said, you were with a lot of people, especially through Fred Tatasciore, through Casey Mongelo, through even Yuri Lowenthal and everyone. Even my very good person I met with, Max Middleman. You being part of it was just the very best choice that the director did so far. And like you said, that like Spike has a heart of gold and this very New York accent. And that's what I love about your acting right there.
Thank you. Those were marvelous sessions, and I just loved working with all those actors. Again, it's always an honor to work with people that you admire and to hear that they possibly admire your work. And I have to give a shout out to the director of that game, is the director from Bright Skull, Michael Surix. One of the most talented and lovely men I've ever had the pleasure of working with, or people, men or women. He is just an incredible guy, an incredible director, and I just want to give him a shout out on your show here because he's a great guy to work with. He's been very kind to put me in several games since then, and I just want to give him a shout out and a hello. And Michael, if you're listening, you're awesome.
Well, of course he is. That's the thing about everything so far, is by giving a lot of credit to everyone for doing very directing work right there, like many others. But now, without further ado, one of your characters, Shark in Sandland, must be a very legendary character to play as, right? So let me ask you this. What made this role so special to you?
What was interesting about doing that one, playing Shark, was the voice print was unlike anything I've had used really very much. He was kind of a very high and very high-pitched guy. I had to put him way up in my head. I get cast of those deeper, gruffy guys or those Lord Master guys in video games. I do a lot of the lower guys. And for some reason, they cast me, and I did this kind of high, very annoying, very nasal guy, which was just a blast to do. He was a very annoying character, and you know, sometimes it's fun to be annoying. Very amusing. So that was a lot of fun to do, both the show itself, and also the accompanying game.
Interesting. So that's what you
like about that. Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Is this annoying? It's fun to be annoying.
Okay, Shark, I kind of get that with you. All I know is that you being part of the game and anime was very awesome right there. Plus, I gave credit to the person I met with 2 years ago, Wendy Lee, for bringing you into both these adaptations of that. And that's why you being part of it was just super awesome, especially when you get to interact with with both Risa May, Keith Silverstein, Jonathan Lipo, and everybody else in the entire project right there.
It was a fun one. And again, I was going to give a shout out to Wendy Lee as well, because she has been in the business for a long time. She's one of the veteran both voice actor and voice directors. And when I see her name on a call sheet to go and work with her, I know it's going to be a fun session. It's going to be efficient. She moves very quickly. She is unique in her ability to verbalize exactly what she wants. You know that I'm a director as well. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I do a lot of voice directing as well. And I have to say, Wendy, if you're listening, I've learned a lot from working with you as an actor. I probably have stolen some gems from you as a director, because I marvel at how economical you can offer direction. You say exactly what you mean to get direction out of your actor on the very next take. I was fortunate enough to be her second chair. She was the casting director and director of a very popular show called Cyberpunks that was out just a year or so ago and won a lot of awards in anime. And she was very kind in letting me play some additional characters and voice some things in it. But when she had a conflict of schedule, she asked me to fill in and direct for her for just a short period of time. And so I sat in and watched her direct the other actors to get to know the show, to know the characters, to know the actors she was working with, and to see her style of directing on this particular show. And I hope I did you proud, but I filled in for her and tried to be Wendy for just a handful of sessions, a week or so. But I adore Wendy and think the world of her.
Of course. That's super awesome to hear from you. Now, without further ado, Shusuke Amagai in Bleach must have a unique presence, right? And what's the most coolest thing about bringing that character to life in the entire anime?
Wow. Well, Bleach had such a big following. By the time I got to it, it had already been this, legendary show. And so when I got to come to the show, I just wanted to fit in like a puzzle piece in the story and lore that was that show. I love doing it. The fans have just been so powerfully connected to it for all these years. So it's just an honor to be part of any show that has that kind of longevity. I've been lucky to be part of a few both animes, but also some games that have long histories to them. I'll mention one. I was fortunate to be part of something called Guild Wars, which is a popular game that still is going on, and I started doing that maybe a dozen years ago, So when you're part of something that's so big, and the fans are coming back that many times or talking about it that many years later, I know for me, I really want to honor it. I want to make sure I know my character and the story, and work very closely with the director to be that puzzle piece into this big, beautiful puzzle.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
That's what you like about that, about being the character in the show. All I know is that I got to know about Bleach, and that here's the fun fact. I made a video for you in December involving characters and voice actors of Bleach and my YouTube channel, and I included you in it in order for your work to be recognized like everybody else's.
Wow, thank you.
It's what I do. Plus, I even included you in some of my videos that I've done, and it all leads to my success right there, giving you exactly what you want. So, yeah, that's...
Thank you. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for your shout out. And someday I will be hopefully working on a show with you, and we can say we are castmates on the same project. I will look forward to that day, sir.
I was hoping for you to say that. Now, without further ado, as Toro Tendo in Zom 100, what was your most favorite thing about bringing that character into the entire project?
Yeah, playing the dad of the main character. Again, I am a dad, and being a dad or a parent brings with it a whole set of emotional baggage or things with it. Not baggage sounds like a bad thing, good things. when you bring someone into this world and you are responsible for them, their care, their moral compass, their joy, trying to keep them safe, it does something to you. It goes back to Spike and Taiki Boy. So playing the dad of this character, I wanted to bring to the vocal table, if you will, to the microphone, a sense of how much I cared about this kid and how much I wanted him to do good and how much I wanted to protect him. And how, as parents, we have expectations of our child. Sometimes that's good and sometimes that can cause friction. And there is a little bit of friction between father and son. And every relationship has both, wonderful things and some things that need some working on. And when I played the father character, I wanted to play all of that. I want to play the love for his kid, the concern, is he going to be okay and he's going to be safe from the zombies, and to play some of the friction that I had with the son. Not everything was perfect, So I think when you bring up that role, Sebastian, the complexity of it, he's a quiet character. The director, Bill Millsap, another one, a legendary director in the industry, honored to work with him. He's again, a wonderful director. He had me really make sure that my performance was contained and very cinematic and nothing too over the top. Sometimes in anime, the acting style can be very big and broad, but he wanted this to be very filmic and very cinematic. And I remember those sessions very well, Sebastian, when he said, just keep it simple. Let your internal life just be gurgling in your head and let the words just fall out of your mouth. And I'm proud of the work I did because it was, I think, very contained in performance, and hopefully some of the complexities of relationship of father and son get carried out. So.
Interesting. That's what you like about bringing that character, because all I know is that there are two things to say. One, I met Bill Millsap 1 year ago for my interviews, and he's like a very honest person from what I'm hearing. But you know, the funny thing is, before he brought you in, he directed another thing called Suzume, and after that, he directed Zom 100, and turns out he brought you into the project.
Yes, indeed.
And number two, I made a video about the Zom 100, again, of the characters and voice actors, and I included you in there for your work to be recognized. So,
well, I'll do a deep dive into these videos so I can watch them all and give them all thumbs ups.
And that's exactly the point there. That's what my videos are for, to support everyone for 4 years. So,
great.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I have to salute you for that's a lot of work to keep making videos time and time again and get them up online and get your following. So I salute those efforts. You work very hard at this.
It's what I often do. But without further ado, since there's like a few minutes left due to the time limit there, there's just one more question I like to ask you.
Please.
The character, Aritomo Yamagata in Rurouni Kenshin, the 2023 version, must have been very cool, right? What's the most thrilling thing about bringing that character into the entire project?
Again, I think of my work as a little puzzle piece that fits into the bigger puzzle. And when I voice any character, I want to think of their backstory, where they're coming from, what they want in the scene, and just to fit that puzzle piece in and honor the project for anything. And honestly, and this is a good message for anybody who's listening or watching, I should say, who is interested in pursuing being a voice actor. It doesn't matter if you have all the lines or just a few lines. Bringing a character to life is the magic that is the job of the voice actor. You might be sentry number 2 and you only have a few lines, but that sentry has a life. They want something, they need something, they're doing something, they came from a certain place, they're going to another place. Bringing characters to life and fitting in however big that puzzle piece is for the whole puzzle doesn't always matter. Take every job seriously, play it as fully as you can, no matter how big or how small the role. Because like you said, you want to be the title character in something, be the main guy, that's great. But sometimes you're the kid, the brother, the cousin, the villain, the shop owner, the sentry, the pizza delivery guy. No matter how big or how small a role is, my advice is to take the work seriously, know what you need in the scene, and perform it, because you are an important piece in the puzzle.
That's the most interesting lesson I'm beginning to hear from you.
Thank you.
But
Thank
you know
you.
something? You being part of Rurouni Kenshin was a very awesome choice. Plus, I give props to a very good fan of mine who has been supporting me for 3 years, Steve Staley, for bringing you in. But the fun fact is that like a very long time ago, your character was originally played by Crispin Freeman. But then
Yes.
by 2023, turns out you came along. And it had me question, when will they ever do a voice comparison thing on Behind the Voice Actors website? Because I want yours to be on top notch, since you're more of the adult version right there.
Oh, well,
So,
thank you very
yeah.
much. We'll wait for that comparison. Maybe you'll make the comparison. I don't know. You do a lot of those videos. Let's see what
Yeah.
you can come up with.
I was hoping you may say that.
Note
Yeah.
to self.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, again, I hope that a video that's made is not us doing a comparison video, but you and I being in the same project, see those end credits roll and our names are right next to each other. That would be just fantastic.
Indeed it will be. And I am going to accomplish that eventually when the time comes. So yeah.
Yes, I look forward to that day.
Yes. Well, Rick, it's such an honor to finally meeting you at last, Rick. And I'm just
Thank you.
hoping that we meet each other right there. There's one more thing before I go.
Yes. I want to also say it's an honor to meet you, so I just want to jump in and didn't mean to interrupt. It's an honor to meet you, and thank you for having me. Yes, now you may proceed with your question.
When people look back on your work, how do you want to be remembered as a voice actor? In a quick way, by all means.
Yeah, what a great question. That's a great question, Sebastian. How do I want to be remembered? I would like to be remembered for someone who has a lot of range, an actor who put everything into every job, no matter how big or how small, and an actor who's known for someone who just absolutely loves what he does. I'm very, very lucky. I get to do what I love to do.
Well, that's a very good thing to hear from you. And I'm glad you say that. Well, Rick, it's such an honor to meeting you, Rick. And there's this one thing before you go. I recommend you watching Gundam Seed Destiny on Netflix, the show that you were brought into by Carrie, so that your voice will be there. I promise you that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Which, if you like, I also did a video about Gundam Seed Destiny if you'd like to check it out later, which I included you in there as well.
I most certainly will. My very, very first directing gig was a Gundam. It was they made those kind of short, kind of playful Gundams, SD Gundams, back in the day. And SD Gundam Force. We did 2 seasons, 104 episodes. And I gave Yuri Lowenthal his very first job. Yuri had been a voiceover student of mine, because I do coach and teach voiceovers, as you may know. And Yuri was a young actor, and he took my class. I gave him his first audition for my first directing job, SD Gundam Force. And he got one of the lead roles, and he just flew. He was so incredible. His ability to do amazing acting while lip syncing, while having knowledge of Japanese. People may know that, maybe don't know, he speaks Japanese. So it was an honor to give him his first gig and watch his career just blossom. That's an old version of SD Gundam.
That's very awesome to hear. Well, Rick, it's such an honor to meet you, and we'll be getting in touch with each other.
Thank you very much for having me, and to all who are watching, thanks for staying tuned.
Of course. Later, Rick.
Bye-bye now.
Want to keep up with my journey? Follow me on social media for more updates, behind the scenes moments, and all the fun along the way.